Okay, now let's move to question number 3. There was a question that a parent asked if their child has a sensory problem, so they're really sensitive, their skin is really sensitive, so they have to wear really comfortable clothes that some kids describe, or we could describe as boyish. So the little girl was in the playground and the kids said that she looked like a boy, or that she was a boy. And she was upset about that, and the mother was asking me, well, how could I deal with that? Well, the first thing I would say is that you first validate your child's emotions. So you don't try to fix it, you don't tell them, oh, it doesn't matter that they said that, it's not true, you're obviously a girl. So before you talk to the child, you should always sort of connect to their feelings. So give them a hug, tell them how did that feel, and if they say sad, you can say yes, I'm sure it felt sad. If you have something similar, like when my daughter came with this when she was young, I shared when a child called me ugly and how that made me feel, and that really creates relatedness and creates them feeling that you're in their world, and they feel less alone, that they know that these things happen to other people. And once their feelings are validated, that you really feel empathetic and connected. And when you know you're being empathetic is when you actually feel what they feel. Because some parents, they tell me, but I listened to them. And then I said, okay, what did you do? So, well, I listened to her, and then I said, but you shouldn't have done that. That never works, right? When you listen to a child, you should really listen in a way that you know that you're really being empathetic, when you feel like they're feeling. So once you've done that, then of course you can discuss whether that's true. It's very important to do that, and it's very good to discuss the validity of other kids' comments. And obviously she would say no. And then you can say, well, if somebody came to me and told me, hey, Natalie, you're stupid right now, is that true? And they'll say, well, no. And you can say, exactly. And then what I usually say to the kids is, why do you think a person says something that's not very nice? When do you say something that's not very nice? When you feel bad or when you feel good? And they always say, when I feel bad. So that gives them sort of a way to create compassion for the other person, that if the other person is saying something that's not very nice, it's probably because they feel bad. And you can say, yes, people are sort of unkind sometimes, either because they don't realize they're being unkind, maybe for them it's funny and for them it's not a big deal, and they think that you wouldn't mind, or maybe they even think it's a compliment, right? You can switch it all around. It's good to sort of mix, to sort of really create room for how a child can contextualize what happened. And then you can say, well, when kids are being mean, it's because they feel bad inside, maybe something happened at home, and you can discuss that. There was this girl in my classroom, and she was telling me that there was this girl that was always being mean. And I said, okay, so what do you do? She said, well, I said something even worse back. I said, what did the girl say? And she said, well, she said that I'm ugly. And what did you say? She said, well, I told her that she is, that how can she live with herself, looking at herself in the mirror, being so ugly every day? And I said, how did that make you feel? And in the beginning she said, good, because I didn't let her push me around. I didn't let her bully me. But then I said, but then how did it feel? And she said, and they always admit it at the end. She said, well, it didn't feel very good. And I said, no, it didn't, did it? She said, no. And I said, okay, well, why do you think this child is being mean to everybody? And then after a discussion with the class, they really got that, if a kid is being mean to everybody, they're probably really lonely. They don't really have friends. And it's actually a safe way to behave. Because if nobody likes me, then if I'm mean, then it's justified. If I'm nice to them and nobody likes me, then I can't really handle that. It's easier to be mean to everybody if I think that nobody likes me. So kids that are mean to everybody usually are dealing with that. And when the kid understood it, I said, how about you go to the swimming pool next time, and if she says something, you say, listen, this doesn't make me feel good, and that's not how I want to do this. How about we stop saying mean things to each other and we become friends? In the beginning she was resistant, but then I told her, listen, how about you try it, and then you tell me what happened. Then she stopped me in the school and she said, Mrs., I did what you said and it kind of worked. And so they stopped being mean to each other and they were friends. So, you know, it's important to, first of all, validate their feelings and then question the validity of what's being said, and then really have them understand that it's really not about them when somebody says something. And I think it's really important to spend the time and use as many examples as they need to get this. When my daughter was 4, some kid bullied her and told her some mean words, and she came in the car, and she sat down, and she was different because she's a very happy child, and I said, "What's wrong?" And she said, "This and this happened at school." And I said, "Oh wow, how did that make you feel?" She said, "Well, it made me feel really sad." And that's when I shared about the kid calling me ugly and how I felt. And then I said, "Okay, well, but that does it have to do with you?" And she said, "Well, yes." And I said, "Does it really? So if somebody tells me this about me, that I'm stupid, is this true?" And she said, "No." If somebody tells me that I'm a bad mom, is that true? And she said, "No." And I said, "If somebody tells you that it's a bad girl, is that true?" And she said, "No." And I said, "Exactly, right?" So I did it enough so that she could tell. And I said, "Well, maybe the kid was in a bad mood. Maybe he has a brother that does it to him all the time, so he did it to you. Maybe his cousins make fun of him, maybe other kids make fun of him." And she eventually really understood it. And I said, "Well, who gets to say about who you are?" And she said, "Me." And I said, "Okay, well, do you want to use that word to describe yourself?" She said, "No." And I said, "What do you want to say?" And she said, well, she was 4, so she said something like, "I'm a beautiful fairy princess that can do anything," or something like that. And that was it, right? She was never, her teachers in school told me that she was bully immune, right? It didn't matter what kids said, she never took it personally. And when kids talked mean to other kids at school, she would sort of comfort them and say, you know, when somebody's being mean, it has nothing to do with you. When they say something, it has nothing to do with you. It has to do with what they hear at home or what they hear from friends. And really, you're the only one who decides who you are. So she sort of passed on the lesson that I gave her. And I think that if you manage to give that to your kids, that whoever talks, it only describes them. And if you're talking, then it does describe you. So it's good to be mindful of what you say about yourself.